Boruto has a plan to take down the Shinju. The recent chapter revealed that Boruto has knowledge on a future event we're not yet privy to, one that relies on Sumeri's experiments, a power that will change the very nature of his Kusanagi blade. This also serves as our first hint towards the flash forward scene. Why didn't Kawaki simply shrink his sword? And why does Boruto feel comfortable using it? Well, it all goes back to this chapter and whatever power it's imbued with. We also have more information on why Sarada isn't affected by Omnipotence, Mamushi's overpowered ability, and what truly happened to the Ten Tails. So as you can see, we have a lot to discuss, but of course, let's start from the top. So the person on the cover is Mr. Inojin, and the title is Betting One's Life. There's also some side text that says ascertain true justice, and also Mamushi closes in on Konoha, while Sarada and Sumire are cornered by Damon. Now the actual side text on the first page says Sarada and Sumire's immunity to Ada's charm has been exposed. How will Damon counter? And the first thing I noticed when I opened up the chapter was the fact that Sarada doesn't have her Mangekyo Sharingan active, which implies that Sarada has submitted to Damon's power. He's just too powerful for her to defeat. Though fortunately for everyone involved, Damon doesn't seem interested in fighting anyone. He more so wanted to assert his dominance. He goes on to say that, you understand now, right? I can dispose of you guys on a whim before you even notice you're dead. Sarada then says, you're not going to kill us? And Ada opts in saying, it is a bit strange. Why are the two of you who are not Otsutsuki unaffected by Omnipotence? Is it because you have had your heart stolen by Boruto, who is an Otsutsuki? No, that isn't the whole of it. There's plenty of girls in the village who have their hearts in a flutter over those two. If the only reason you can dodge Omnipotence is because of that, then it's strange that there aren't other girls who are the same. Even still, the two of you remain unaffected. There's only one reason I can think of. I must have made an exception myself for the two of you. Of course, that desire was entirely subconscious. Omnipotence just made it a reality. So this pretty much confirms that the reason why Sarada and Sumire are unaffected by Omnipotence is because Ada didn't want them to be, at least subconsciously. This of course extends to the charm ability because it's an offshoot of Omnipotence. Omnipotence itself is the ability that causes all of this, the memory wipes and the love charm. It all goes back to that one ability. And as I said in the spoiler, I thought this happened when she watched Sumire defend her while she was heading towards the village. It would make sense that she sees her as an ally at that point in time, but she then goes on to imply later on in this chapter that it's when Sarada said, let's do it, let's become just normal friends, which happened back in chapter 76. And as I also explained in the spoiler, this makes perfect sense because Sarada was somewhat affected in that moment. She noted that the power was overwhelming. She felt it. It just wasn't to the same effect as someone like Mitsuki. So it goes back to the entire strong-willed aspect which Shikamaru also benefited from. It also makes sense why Ada isn't too upset about the entire situation. She even goes on to say that it was something she had always wished for, even before she met them in person. Her deepest wish was to have proper human relations. And she also isn't worried about Sarada and Sumire attacking her after all this time. Again, it's been over 3 years. They've become very friendly, even though they've kept their secrets. To the point that Ada even says that if they were the ones to kill her, it wouldn't be so bad. That's when Sarada grabs onto Sumire's hand and rushes over to Ada, embracing her. And I love this entire scenario, this entire scene. It's so beautifully done. But also, my one complaint, which is that I wish Sarada had that sad expression immediately after Ada said what she just said, instead of after they embraced. I just think that panel would have been great, but that's just a nitpick. But yeah, Ada then goes on to ask Sarada why she's randomly hugging her. Sarada then says it's my own way of showing my resolve and a symbol of my friendship. Sumire then embraced Ada and says, I don't hate it. Risking your life for friendship is the best kind of thrill. Ada then embraced both of them and says, thank you, both of you. Nice to meet you once again, my precious friends. And there we see Damon in the background cheesing because finally his sister has real friends, so he's very happy. So yeah, love the entire interaction. It was really good. Well written by Kimoto, so hats off to him. I would then switch over to Kashin Koji and his little squad in this hideout. Koji says that Mamushi's ability is to split apart. It is one of his powers. There's almost no limit to his numbers. He can split apart into several persons. Boruto then questions if it's like shadow clones. Koji says no, it's completely different. The biggest difference is all of the parts are the real body. Also, his chakra isn't split. There's no decline in his power or physical strength. He does have a weakness though. The more his numbers increases, the more his intelligence falls, and very quickly. In addition to that, his pain threshold reduces and his movements become simplified. That is the opening we should try to take advantage of. So Mamushi's ability is to create clones of himself that are just as powerful as the original, but they lose intelligence the more they divide. So in some sense, these clones are better than shadow clones since they retain the full strength of their chakra, while shadow clones get gradually weaker because their chakra is divided. But it's a bit more nuanced than most people realize because Naruto's clones tend to retain his physical striking strength. It's just that his chakra gets weaker, which affects the power of his jutsus. And his clones also aren't very durable unless he chooses to make them that way, which is somewhat similar to the pain threshold of these Shinju clones, whereas in Naruto's case, he can choose to increase the pain threshold if he really wants to, while Mamushi doesn't have that option. In any case, I'll do an entire video that goes in depth on this comparison, and it should be up later this week, so I'll see you guys on that one. Now Shikamaru goes on to say, so in other words, you're saying that the optimal solution is to let him multiply until he starts acting like a fool, and then do away with all of his parts at once. Koji then says, exactly. There's just one more important point to note. Make sure to crush both of his eyes. A body that has lost both eyes will become unable to split. But also be cautious. By reducing his numbers, his intelligence decline will recover. So in a sense, Mamushi's ability is tied to his Rinnegan specifically. And I assume this happened because Bug himself didn't possess any jutsu. So while Hidori gained Chidori and Fireball Jutsu from Sasuke, Ryu gained Iron Sand from Shinki, and even Matsuri gained Wood Release from Awake, even though you could argue that, she's technically a 10-tail Shinju, so she should have that anyway. But there's that connection. When it comes to Bug, he didn't have any. So the 10-tails compensated for that and gave him an ability that is somewhat related to his name, which is of course a computer bug, which is something that doesn't necessarily spread like a virus, but it does infect other programs, files, and operating systems that it comes in contact with. So in that sense, a bug can spread to different file systems. So it makes sense why the bug Shinju would possess such an ability, but it does pose an interesting question about the capabilities of these 10-tails to just manifest abilities out of nowhere. So we'll see what happens though. Now Shikamaru then goes on to say, I see. So if we leave a few parts left over, we'll struggle to fight. But if you let him make too many, then he won't be able to control the situation. Koji then tells them to aim for about 20 to 30 clones. He'll become easier to handle. It'll be like fighting an animal. Then you can round them all up and take care of them with one blow. Shikamaru then says this is just a theory, but what if he leaves one of his parts behind at the hideout? Even if we get rid of all the parts in the village, doesn't that mean we fail to exterminate him? Koji replies to this saying that there's no need to worry. His separate parts have a property that causes them to swarm. Even if he plans ahead and leaves one part on standby, it should instinctively flock towards where the majority are gathered. Now Inojin then interjects and says, that being said, why is there a need to fight in Konoha? If we know he's going to appear, shouldn't we at least try to intercept him? Koji then made a very good point. The main reason for choosing Konoha as a battleground is to prevent Jura's intervention. Jura's goal is Boruto and Himawari. If they move, Jura will move. But if the battlefield is Konoha, he won't appear. Inojin then asked him why. He then goes on to say for some reason, it seems as though he's taken a liking to Konoha. He makes frequent visits to the bookstore and the sweet shop. he's sighted there sometimes. And that's when you see Jura sitting in the village, eating some sweets and drinking some tea. Shikamaru says that the sensory unit reports him just in case, but all we can do is leave him be. Koji then pops in and says Jura has deemed fighting in Konoha to be unacceptable. Mamushi understands that as well. It's best to not incur the wrath of one's superior. He'll be careful not to cause unwarranted destruction to the village. Boruto then questions him about if this remains true even if he becomes an idiot. Because of course, if his intelligence is falling, does he have the sense to not cross Jura? Koji then says it's an instinct. No matter how low his intelligence drops, his fear of Jura will never disappear. At the same time, neither will his goal of devouring Ada. That is why the ideal option is challenging Mamushi to a solo fight in the village. Now Koji then turns to Inujin and says, I'm going to have you master a new jutsu. It's not an exaggeration to say that this jutsu will be pivotal to the battle with Mamushi. It's a brand new jutsu that's backward compatible with mind transfer jutsu. That is why I invited you here. Mamushi will arrive in the village about a week from now. There's a chance that he'll come even sooner. Either way, there's not much time. At the very least, I need you to perfect this jutsu in just 2 days. You should be able to do it. After all, this is a jutsu you thought up yourself in order to enact vengeance for Himawari. Inujin then puts on his shocked Pikachu face and says, Wait, what did you just say? And of course, this is in reference to the fact that he had to avenge Himawari, I assume, because that implies that she got cooked by Jura in one of the possible timelines. But yeah, Koji then says, I see your eyes have changed. Of course, it is a future we must avoid. But the theory and skills you obtained were of great value. I shall now explain them to you. And Inujin, now filled with the need to protect Himawari, says, I don't need 2 days. I'll master it in 1. And of course, Boruto is right there giving him that side eye, saying, okay bro, we get it. We get it bro, we get it. We get it. Alright, calm down. Now we then switch over to Amado reviewing the footage from Kawaki's fight with Jura, and surprisingly, Kawaki's also there. So apparently Kawaki knows that Amado is able to watch footage from his eyeballs using scientific ninja tools, so that is very interesting. But yeah, Kawaki goes on to ask him if he found anything, and Amado then says it's a bit hard to make out from my info, but something itself is definitely inside, and the tree is cultivating. Looking at it, I think there's no mistake in it. That is the divine tree itself. Not only does it heal their injuries, it also functions as a powerful weapon and impenetrable shield. And this of course is because Jura used it to block Kawaki's Omega Beam Blast and it did nothing to Jura. So apparently the vines took the brunt of the force and they're just that powerful to tank a full force attack from Karma Kawaki, which some believe is on Ishiki level, although that's up for debate. But yeah, apparently the vines are very powerful. Mother then also note that it's not just about weak points. You might as well assume he's immortal. He's already, and Kawaki finished the sentence saying he's beatable. I definitely felt that when we fought, just not with the firepower I have right now. I need to get stronger. Mother then says, Kawaki, I'm telling you this for your own good. Getting any stronger than this, and just before he's able to finish, Kawaki grabs him by his neck and lifts him up into the air as per usual, and goes on to say, should I crush your throat? Shut your face and do as I say, without the useless backtalk. If you really want to earn my help for the sake of your daughter, that is. He then drops him to the ground and the mother says, I've already told you, if you gain more power, your body won't hold. Before you're even able to fight him, you'll ruin yourself. Kawaki then looks down at him and says, don't make me repeat myself. I'm not granting your wish until after I've whittled the enemy down to their roots. You want to see your daughter again, don't you? Then quit whining and accept your fate. I can either kill them all first or die first. You've got no choice but to place your bets. We then switch over to Konohamaru having a conversation with Lord Kubo, because of course he's being interrogated for helping Boruto. And he goes on to say that I was on the side who interrogated Boruto in accordance with my orders. Kubo then says, unfortunately for you, that doesn't serve as proof, for that itself is precisely what a mole would say. He then says, that is why we're conducting this investigation. That is the reason why you're here. Konohamaru then stupidly goes on to say, at the very least, at the time of the interrogation, I resented Boruto. But, to be honest, right now, I feel that there's some sort of inconsistency with his public image as a traitor. Kubo then says, I don't know what you wound up getting involved in, but I believe you are being tactfully manipulated. Also, it's astounding that you can state such opinions in a situation like this. Have you no understanding of the position you're in? And Kobu or Kubo, whatever his name is, then has this internal dialogue where he says that his tactless frankness is plausible. He's a rather unintelligent man. He doesn't have the nature of a mole. The person who aided in Boruto's escape must be someone else. That is when Shikamaru phoned in to Konohamaru using Inojin's ability. He then says that he doesn't have much time, so he'll get straight to the point. Listen well and listen calmly. The one who let Boruto escape was me. I told Mitsuki the passcode and had him undo Boruto's cuffs. I'm working with him even now, of my own accord. Konohamaru then asked him why on earth would he do this, and Shikamaru says, you already know, especially as of right now. And that's when Konohamaru remembers Boruto saving him and protecting him during the fight with Jura, and he seems like he's coming towards some sort of conclusion. Shikamaru then says it might only be a matter of time before he figures out what I did. Konohamaru, I'm sorry, but this is a one-sided earnest request. Lend me, no, lend us your strength. Of course the final decision is up to you, but if you can trust me, then please, work together with us. And that's where the conversation ends. Also, I want to point out that Sai is also in the room, and it seems like he's noticing what's going on because of course he lives with someone who uses the same jutsu, so he might be picking up on the signs that maybe Konohamaru is communicating with someone during the interrogation. And of course, we'll see if that plays out in the upcoming chapter. Now then switch over to the conversation with Ada and Sarda, and Sumire gets a ping, it seems, and she says that she has to get going to the labs. Sarda then says that she should probably go as well, but Ada jumps at her and hugs her, and Sarda then asks for Sumire's help, but Sumire leaves and says, have fun. She then leaves the house, and it seems that Boruto is right outside, leaning against the wall. So if anything actually happened with Damon and Sarda, Boruto would have likely stepped in to save her. But yeah, Boruto then pulled out his sword and says, Uchiha sword style cloaked sword. You cloak your blade in chakra constantly, in order to prevent the edge from getting dull or nicked. I let my guard down for just a second, and this was the result. It cracked. Sorry Prez, but can you have this fixed by the end of the week? He then pulled out a scroll and gave it to Sumire, and says, take a look at this. She then opens the scroll, and her eyes widen. This technique is, and Boruto says, yeah, there's been nothing else like it up to this point. Once you finish what you're researching now, you'll end up making this. I can't give you any more details, but will you fix it? Sumire then says, if I fix it using this skill, I think it will end up being reborn as something entirely different. Is that still okay? Boruto then gives her the sword and says, this is a strong blade. I don't think my master would have any complaints, you know. Sumire then says, alright, got it, but there's just one small problem. I don't like being called class press. Call me Sumire from now on. She then laughs and runs off saying, I'll make this cooler for you, so look forward to it. So yeah, this might be some kind of jutsu that nullifies techniques, which is why Kawaki's Tsukinai Konab doesn't work on it. Or maybe it's just something that nullifies chakra, thus achieving a similar result. Or maybe it's something else. Maybe it's infusing life force energy into the blade, because of course Kawaki can't shrink living things. So there are multiple options. I guess we'll see when the time comes. Now we then skip to the final page, and it says a few days later. We have Bug on the outskirts, on the walls of the village, and he says, well now, I wonder where you're at, Ada. He then looks towards his clone and says, Oi, make sure you guys don't forget, erase your chakra signature as well, and don't let them sense you. We then get the side text that says the demon army finally attacks, controlling his power and knowledge. Konoha and Ada must hold fast. And that is where the chapter ends. So yeah, we have a lot to look forward to next month. We have the fight with Mamushi versus Damon, because I doubt he's gonna fight Ada. And of course, we might find out what Sumire does to Boruto's sword. But all in all, I think this chapter was a really good one. So let me know your ratings down in the comments, and also give me your thoughts and theories and predictions about what's gonna happen further on in the story. If you guys like the video, drop a like. If you're new, subscribe, and also consider becoming a member to further support the channel if you guys want to. I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.